Are you making the best first impression on LinkedIn, or are you even using the platform? If you don't have a presence on this critical business platform, who are you potentially leaving behind in your audience? I know that I am guilty of sometimes ignoring LinkedIn, but it is absolutely an important tool, and I'm very excited that we're going to do some learning about it today. Welcome to this special series of the Entrepreneur Success Summit interviews. I am your host, Kelly Sinclair. I am a brand and marketing coach, and I work with passionate entrepreneurs to help them get visibility for their business, their brand, and their purpose. And I'm here today with Janice Porter, who is a LinkedIn pro who trains business professionals to network at a mastery level and shows them how to turn their connections into new business through relationship marketing, both online and offline. Welcome, Janice.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that kind introduction, Kelly. It's fun to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you again. The last time that we spoke, you dove deep into LinkedIn profiles and gave such great tips that I'm really excited to be able to share this again with a broader audience. So why don't we start with telling us a bit about what you do and who you help?
Thank you. So I teach people how to, first of all, create a great first impression on LinkedIn, optimize their profiles so that the right people that they want to connect with will be attracted to them by their profile. And then I teach them, I kind of see it in three buckets. We do the profile first, and then we look at messaging strategies and how to search strategically for the people that we want to connect with, who may be prospects, they may be strategic partners, referral partners, places to get to broaden your reach. And then the third bucket is all about content so that you could be seen as an authority and be visible on a regular basis on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's so important because you have to have that presence and that place where people can find you and connect with you. But then if you don't do anything with it.
Exactly.
Right.
And maybe just to back up one little piece is from your introduction, when you said, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're missing out on certain parts of your audience. I think that's the key, though, is if your audience you think is not on LinkedIn, test the waters first, because it's a business platform. And so it's not just a place to put your resume. It's not a place just to get a job. There are a lot of people today that are entrepreneurs and small business owners who are moving from Facebook in particular, because it's not doing what it was in the past, and finding that LinkedIn is a better place for them to be. Instagram is a whole story unto itself, and you're the queen of Instagram. I love that you do that. And there is a certain audience that will be there, but there might be another part of your audience that you're missing out completely because they hang out on LinkedIn.
Yeah. So maybe can you give us a little bit of a sense of who is really primarily using that platform right now so that people can assess whether they should take a look at it?
Sure. And I think it's broadened over the last couple of years for sure. I just went completely blank, but you don't have to edit that out. That's just
this is a real conversation, real life. Exactly. Yeah, who's on LinkedIn? And I think where you were going, actually, I want to pick up on that. Over the past 2 years with COVID, we have started doing so much more online networking, right? And then LinkedIn kind of becomes the tool to maintain those connections after you go to the event.
Very good point, of course. The audience or the community on LinkedIn is it's about 50-50, a little bit skewed more male than female, but it's pretty close. They are people who are decision makers. They are their socioeconomic, their earnings is generally a little bit higher than on other platforms. So those things are key in the sense that people there can make a decision. So if you're talking to people, usually you can talk about business more quickly there as well than you can on any other platform. That it is a social media platform, but it is a business platform. So that is something to consider. And in terms of having conversations with people, there are business owners, there are entrepreneurs now, there are corporate HR people, there are, sales people, there are financial people. It runs the gamut, but they're people, and they're people. That's, and they're always looking for different things. So keep that in mind. They're just people.
Yeah. So what's the most surprising thing people discover when they work with you?
I think because my background is teaching and training, I have been an elementary school teacher, and I have been a corporate trainer, and I know how to teach people at the level that they're at. I'm very aware of what's working and what isn't with people. There are different ways that people learn, so you want to adapt accordingly. And the other thing is that I get to the details that I get to with people and with training on LinkedIn.
And so when it comes to actually using LinkedIn, what's the most surprising thing about, like, when they start implementing this piece of their networking strategy? What kind of like results and outcomes do they get?
Well, I think that just the same as with any other networking opportunities, you can network online, you can start relationships, build relationships, give value, and then you want to take them offline to a real conversation on a phone, God forbid, or a Zoom call.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, too much, I know. So Zoom calls, phone calls, coffee dates, if we ever get those again, that kind of thing. So it takes a little bit of time, but the more comfortable you are in that concept of networking and having conversations with people, it can be faster. And the other piece I'll add to that about LinkedIn is, if you do your homework by really looking at what's on someone's profile, and even what isn't there, but what's implied, you can get a sense of how to start a conversation with somebody. And that's a big, huge difference between spamming people and making it about them.
Yeah. And I think this is so important. I was just having a conversation with somebody who was telling me all about the marketing things that she was doing, like advertising and SEO and all this stuff that's kind of like trying to pull people to you, but it's like cold, versus that, that you have to build relationships and build trust with people, especially, well, it doesn't matter what you do, for them to be able to be comfortable spending money with you. They need to know you a little bit. They need to know that you're good at what you do, that you have credentials, that you have expertise, that you know what you're talking about, that you're a human being, right? All of these things that you actually can get across through using more like direct communication and engagement with people, such as on your LinkedIn profile, right?
Yeah, so that speaks to one tiny little piece that is actually really huge in that first impression. And so when I build a profile with somebody, the very last thing that we talk about, because I don't want them to even do this until their profile is complete, is to put those recommendations on there and ask people to recommend. It's a testimonial, but in LinkedIn, they're called recommendations.
Right.
And that's your social proof. And so if you ask people to speak to how you coach them, or the experience that they had with you, and they put that on your LinkedIn profile, that speaks volumes. And so if people are looking to work with me as a LinkedIn trainer and they're not sure, I actually do encourage them to go and look at the recommendations at the bottom of my profile. They need to be current, and that you need to be, as many as you can, because you can only ever see the last two that people chronologically were added there. But when you go to someone's profile and you look at the bottom and you see the last recommendation they had on there was in 2012, well, okay, they're not using the platform, they're not being current on it, and it needs an update, and that makes you wonder, right? So
Yeah, that I'm definitely guilty of that. And I'm like, okay, I'm making note to myself right now, going, automate request for LinkedIn testimonial. Like that has to be part of like the offboarding of working with a client or in the middle of or whatever. It needs to be something you think of doing like while you're still currently working with somebody.
Yeah, for sure. I always ask my clients when I'm teaching them, I'll say, and when we're finished working together, I will probably send you a LinkedIn recommendation request as well, if you don't mind. So I'm kind of asking them at the same time, right?
For sure. So what would be your top piece of advice, one like quick win somebody can get if they're going to go now and go, okay, LinkedIn, I need to go over there and double check that I'm like showing up with a good first impression?
So I call it above the fold. That first impression, that's an old newspaper term for those
I know it.
Oh, good. Okay. So above the fold, it's the first thing you see before you scroll down. And what you see is your LinkedIn banner, which is the background image. You see your headshot in the left-hand side, and you see your headline, which is the valuable real estate right under your name. Those three things need to be impressive, I guess, to make that good first impression. So no blank default banners. Do something that either is a copy of your website or puts some image that speaks to what you do. It doesn't need to be busy. It needs to be, I call it classy, but it needs to maybe have your URL for your website there as well. Maybe your tagline, maybe it matches the colors of your website. So your banner, your headshot, please no selfies. We need to have a professional headshot. And thirdly, your headline needs to speak to keywords around who you are. For me, it would be LinkedIn trainer, relationship marketing strategist or specialist, and then maybe a key, I call it a positioning statement, so that it speaks to your target audience. Guiding you to your marketing excellence for you or something like that. So I don't know. I've gone blank on what mine says now.
I know what mine says because I also help with positioning statements from a brand perspective. So it says helping passionate entrepreneurs get visibility.
There you go. Mine says increasing your sales by building relationships online and nurturing them offline.
Yeah.
I also put a podcast host in there as well.
Right. Yeah. Right. So, I remember that. I think that last time we talked, I went and edited mine immediately. So
awesome. Okay. I'll have to double check it.
Yes, exactly. So that's so awesome. So banner, profile image, like professional headshot, and how much space do you have for that description?
You have 220 characters, including spaces. So I always put it on a Word document first and count the characters, and then I can sort of see. And don't use commas, use some kind of a divider that a little more professional looking. I use that pipe stem, which is the up and down line. You can use little emojis if you want, but don't get too cutesy on LinkedIn. Make them a bit more, subtle.
Yeah, well, mine are definitely sparkle stars because it's just very on brand for me, and I use it as my like dividers, and it's a little more visual, and it matches, right? So
because aren't you the fairy
brand mother?
There you go. Yeah, they're fine, and they're not in your face. They're cute, but yes, on brand is important. So there you go.
Right. Because I think this is something, and maybe we'll just have this be sort of the last question / comment. People think maybe that LinkedIn is just very corporate and stodgy a little bit. And so that there's this definition of what professional means. And that if you do things like I do, which include like dancing on Instagram reels in my pajamas.
Yes.
Then that is like, how could I go into this other world where I have to be this different version of myself? Right.
Well, so I think that's a good point. I think that's a really good point. And I think that you want to be yourself. Absolutely. But step it up to, here's how I would define it. Instagram and Facebook are very much more backyard barbecue. Okay, so that's where your pajamas will work just fine. Okay, Twitter is more like Sam's bar on Cheers. You drop in for a quick drink and you're gone. Okay, so I don't use Twitter, so that's the most of my expertise there. And LinkedIn is more like the cocktail party, the wedding reception that's more formal, the gala charity event. So you just want to step it up a notch just to make people feel comfortable that you're in the right place.
Right. Because as a consumer, even thinking about what you see when you are on these platforms, like the expectation of what you see when you're on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn is different. And so also like where people are at in their own thought process and wanting to get to know you, they're starting at a different place on those places. Like on Instagram, they're really wanting to see who you really are, like get that personal touch. And on LinkedIn, they're like, I'm here to learn. I'm here to make good connections. I'm like skipping the fluffier stuff.
Well, I still want to get who you are. But
but as a professional though, is that like the distinction?
I think so. I think so, that you're serious about what you do. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't have a sense of humor, and it doesn't mean that you can't have your fairy wand, you know? Like, I just think that maybe it means that you just do it a little bit differently on LinkedIn. I'm just looking for something on your profile here.
Yeah, I think it kind of for me shows up in like the content that is shared, that I will put like more stuff like this video, but not the pajama dance.
Yeah, and then maybe once in a while, throw it in because it throws people off and it is you. So it's okay once in a while. Nice. And I guarantee you though, that LinkedIn, if you put something like that on LinkedIn, I bet you'll get more views and more engagement because you are being more vulnerable. But just don't do it all the time.
I think that, well, my husband is in that particular video also in his pajamas. He might not appreciate it as much on LinkedIn as he was okay with it on Instagram. But okay, well, I know that you have a really great tool, a great resource that people can download. Can you tell us what it's called? And I'll make sure to put the links in the description and everything for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. They're welcome to download my 16 steps to a fully optimized LinkedIn profile. And it's a checklist that helps you get your profile in order. And if you want more, I have an online course that you can do it yourself. And all the hints and tips and teachings and trainings are in there at a reasonable price, or feel free to reach out and talk to me.
Amazing. And where can people find you? On LinkedIn? Where else online?
Find me at janiceporter.com, and they can find me at my LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn/in/Janice Porter. So I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. And I have a podcast that I'd love people to look at too. And it's called Relationships Rule. And it's on pretty much all the platforms. So
amazing. Awesome. Well, I hope that people will connect with you and reach out, because if you didn't just get that as an invitation to make connections, that was the whole point of this conversation. Please do actually take this and don't just consume it. Do something with it, take action, and reach out to Janice. I'm sure she would love to hear you share one thing that you did on your profile to improve it based on this conversation.
Absolutely. And make sure if you reach out to me on LinkedIn that you tell me that you were, you heard me or saw me on Kelly's video.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being with me, Janice. Until next time, go make your dreams come true.
Thanks, Kelly.